That's the trade-off Orlando gives, to where you're close enough to deal with it, but you're close enough to be tucked away. And that's usually what I tell people to start with, is like, you got to figure out what kind of person you are, because all of Central Florida is awesome. And that's why we chose to move here. What's up, everyone? It's Cameron Hodge coming at you from eXp Realty here in Orlando, Florida. And obviously on this channel, if you're new to it, on this channel, we talk about everything about eating, sleeping, and living here in Orlando, Florida. And we are always getting reach outs, days, nights, weekends, by people looking to make the move to Orlando. And we absolutely love it. So give us a call, shoot us a text, email, whatever you have to do. We have your back when moving to Orlando, Florida. All right. So I just wanted to shoot this video before the main video. So we had some recording issues in the beginning. I screwed up and I didn't record my face. I just recorded Brian's for the first 18 minutes of the video. I completely apologize that all you're going to do is hear my voice in the beginning of the video, but I wanted to make sure I uploaded this video anyways, because there is some amazing information regarding like me and my, on our team, Brian, our lender, when we made our move out here to the area, and as well as just other amazing information. So I didn't want to like just completely throw out the video. I want to make sure I uploaded that so you can get the best information and all of it. So, without that, in this video, we're going to be talking about everything about, the market, interest rates, why we moved out to Florida, some of the big reasons why we moved out here. Brian flips the script on me and ends up becoming the host for a little bit, asking me some crazy questions, kind of digging that information out of me when I made the move out here. And I think it's amazing. So without that, let's get into the video. All right. And so today I am joined with a member of our team. So if you've reached out before or you haven't already, you will notice his face. His name is Brian Brady. He's our lender that we partner with here on our team. And he has been doing this for a very long time. And he always gives the best service to any of my clients. And whether you have a lender or you think you have already and you're already pre-approved or not, like, he's always there. And I promise you, he will stick through till the end to help us get you into the home when you're making that move. Also, he is not a native as well. So just like me, we moved to Florida. We're not, ignorant to not living in this, growing up in the state and being here already. He's just like me, and he understands what it's like to live in a lot of other places and how amazing this area is. And that's why we moved here. So Brian, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, give a little bit of a backstory. And
so I'm laughing because I grew up in Philadelphia, and as coming from the Northeast, and I'm in my 50s. So, my friends and I joke in St. Peter, the Northeast, like eventually I was going to end up retired in Florida. So it might as well start now. But like my path took me through San Diego, and I watched the destruction of America's finest city. And a couple of years ago, my wife and I started looking into the next place, a place that was pro-growth and a place that was affordable, a place for the next generation, like my daughter, could afford to work, live, and play. And more importantly, we wanted to be, by the beach. So we ended up in St. Pete Beach, and we got licensed in both mortgage and real estate mortgages. We met you through VA mortgages because so much of our business serves America's veterans. Yep. But we made the move. I was on the phone with some people yesterday. So many Californians are coming. And to you native Floridians who are watching out there, as the Californians are coming, relax. We are refugees. We are not coming here to California or Florida. We're coming because Florida is the greatest state, and we're so pleased to be here today.
Yep, for sure. So, obviously we have a lot of clients that are making the move out here. And I think one thing I always hear a lot is obviously the market in Florida, like a lot of other markets in the US, is insanely hot, and it has only getting like the more of those other, other states are making rules and stuff that are pushing people out, or just even cost, and we all know California is just insane right now, even New York City and obviously stuff like that. So a lot of people are moving to Central Florida, Orlando especially. I know a lot of people are concerned with cost and stuff like that. You've been doing this a long time. Why don't you give a little bit of insight on is it even worth buying a home when making that move out here, or, should people just trying to make it work?
It is. And I getting on the economic ladder, that is buying a home. is imperative. And here's why. By the way, it's not that Orlando is hot or St. Petersburg is hot or that Tampa is hot or that Miami's hot. What's happened is over the last 12 years, the Federal Reserve has tripled the money supply. This is kind of geeky stuff. The money supply is all of the currency, all the dollar bills and all the stuff that people carry in their pocket, plus all the money in the checking accounts and short-term deposits. Those are CDs or less. And the Federal Reserve doesn't print money in old days, but the Federal Reserve creates money digitally. Now, this is important because the money supply, right? If you triple the money supply, those dollars are going to be looking for homes, looking for a home for that money. This is why the stock market's up. And this is why so many things are heading in prices. So a lot of people in St. Pete, since I've gotten here, have said, oh my gosh, the rest of the world's discovering St. Pete. You should see our prices. And I'm like, dude, Omaha is inflating too.
Right.
Now, so the reason I bring this up is because since this is happening, has proved to be a good store of value, meaning it typically tracks, the appreciation rate typically tracks the inflation rate. Well, how do people make so much money in real estate? Well, if real estate typically averages 3 or 4% a year over time to track inflation, the way people make money in real estate is state. So they don't have to pay cash for it. So if you put down $300,000 for a home in Orlando and you had cash for it, you could expect, for the most part, the value to track the inflation rate. But if you only put 10% down or 3% down, that 3% or $9,000 a year it's going to appreciate is literally going to be like doubling and tripling the return on your investment. And so that's why we talk about it, why real estate is so important as the first step on the economic ladder.
Absolutely. And to kind of summarize, it's like, it's a good decision. I mean, not only the value of like owning real estate and stuff like that is getting really deep into it, but for those who, I mean, maybe they haven't owned something before moving here, but I mean, rents have really increased substantially, not even just Orlando, but a whole Central Florida, even in the last couple of years. And I always tell people, it's like, you look at like a lot of like the last crashes, everyone always talks about that and brings it up. It's the fact that, rents don't really drop very often unless there's like a major issue in the area. And with the way that rents keep increasing in the area, a lot of people are like, well, I'll just rent. And it makes sense. But a lot of times, if they're able to purchase that home, it's being able to have that ability to have that piece of Central Florida. I mean, I've heard people mention it before. And, similar to like San Diego, because you were there a lot longer than I was, even you said this whole area is kind of like it's prime for growth. And I think personally, compared to, because like even before I moved out here, it was like about 10 years in difference. And since I was here first, and even in that time, that's a completely different area than what it used to be.
It is.
In a lot of good ways.
People need to understand it. Yeah, people, when they compare it to rents, I tell people this all the time. Don't compare a mortgage payment today versus a rent payment today. Compare it to the rent payment in 3 years. And that's really important because the rents are jumping in Florida 10, 15, in some cases 40%. Now, of course, wrap their arms around it. They'll blow it. So the single and best way to give yourself a hedge against future rent increases is to get a 30-year fixed rate loan and get it on your property. And if it's pretty close to what you pay in rent, hang in there. And over 10 years, you're going to be very, very happy.
Right. No, I agree with that. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I think one of the things that I hear all the time, and I hear this a lot in Florida, is especially with younger people, is they don't know what it costs to get into a house. And they don't understand that they don't need 20% down. They don't need $60,000 to buy a $300,000 home.
Right.
Let's start with a few things, if we can, to talk about how people can get into a home. First of all, the greatest thing is if you are a military veteran, and that is defined as serving 181 days or more, or if you were in this for at least an 8-year period, and your drilling was all up to date and so forth, you have a thing called a VA home loan benefit. And what that does is it allows you to buy a home for no down payment.
Yep.
That is not a freebie. That is something that you earn. That was a benefit that was given to you as part of your contract when you signed the enlistment papers or received your commission. That is part of your compensation. And if there's any realtors watching this channel, I think it's imperative that they understand and that their sellers understand that this is not, and the veteran doesn't have skin in the game. It's got a lot of skin in the game. There's a lot of skin that comes from the 6 years of service that you did. Yep. So that's the first thing. If you're a military veteran, this is a no-brainer. You want to talk to me and we'll run you through the numbers and show you that with zero money down. If you're not a military veteran, you can get into a home for as little as 3.5% down. And I think this is through the FHA program. This is an extraordinary thing. So that $300,000 house is a $10,000 down payment.
Right. And sometimes there are certain programs. It all depends, obviously, on the area and what's going on. But sometimes there can be programs that help with some costs for those closing costs, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe not all of it, but a portion.
Yeah, right? Certainly can. Sure. But I mean, people, and I say this to people all the time. If that sounds foreboding to you, $10,000 sounds foreboding. Break it down and put together a year or two plan, and it's simple. I can show you that. $10,000 spread over 2 years is saving about $400 a month, and if you can do that in 2 years, you should be into a home.
For sure. And also to go back on the VA loan thing, obviously this market inventory is still tight, it's still competitive, obviously it differs by area, city. There's a lot, obviously, that'll change that competition. But for anyone who's looking, because I know I've talked about this before, so we actually chose to build when we moved to Orlando. And also for my veterans listening, like I put no money down to build that house other than like about a $5,000 builder's deposit. And that was awesome because for those of us coming from like California and like expensive markets that are like expensive city metros, like that's not even an option. And when I finally decided to make that decision out here, we were able, it's insane that you're actually able to have that opportunity still here in Central Florida. Obviously it differs on every individual situation. And for those who aren't veterans, I'd say the average for most builders, you're going to need about 10% down. That's the lowest I've seen, but it can be higher. It all depends on obviously your financial risk, but just because I know people are going to I've had a lot of questions on that too. And I'm like, yeah, it could be an option. Obviously, I have other videos and I'll probably link them right here at this point, but yeah, building's a whole different beast in itself. So everything we're talking about now is it's not the good decision for most, but.
No. So another thing that was just coming across my head, my daughter is in college and she's a real estate major. And so we were talking about, all these flip shows and all these things you see. And she was talking about, she was calling them house hacks. And I started laughing. I'm like, okay, that's actually a flip. It's like buying an older property and renovating it. Yeah. And that's a real good opportunity. And I'll tell you, if you have some money saved up, and I know so many people have been doing well in the stock market or they've been saving money. This is and the Orlando area's got some homes that are 40 and 50 years old that aren't in bad shape. They're just in original condition is the best way to put it. They haven't been updated. They've got the antique gold wallpaper, or they've got the olive stoves, and you can go in there and update a house and you can buy one of those houses below market value. There's not a ton of them out there, but when you find one, you can then use a little bit of your personal touch and make the house the way you want to make it.
For sure. Yeah. And I think the moral of that is it's really just like the opportunities there, especially making a move is already hard enough since a lot of us are making that move across states and with families, and it's chaos, so I think a lot see renting as, a way to get easier into the market. Like, but they hear a lot of stories. The news, as we all know, the news hypes up everything substantially. But we've even had, mutual clients, looking off market and making deals work where they're really, at most are competing against one other offer. It's a lot of times I think just comes back to making a plan. Like you have to have a plan. You have to have professionals that are, know what they're doing, and they do this every day. So
well, I don't think there's, I tell this to people all the time. Renting has its place, and I'll give you a great example.
yeah.
If you're not sure of the area, if you're moving to Florida, you're not sure of the area, rent a place. We thought we were going to go to Pensacola, and then we went there in January, and we were all ready to go out and look for the idea is we'll rent a place for 5 or 6 months and look around. We showed up in January and it was cold.
Yeah, it gets cold.
I didn't want that.
No.
And so that's how we ended up in St. Pete. So, if you're not sure of an area, maybe go and test it out for a few months. I know that's hard, especially if you're having to do work where you've got to be on site. Yeah. But if you're a remote worker, I mean, there's really no reason not to do a tour of Florida in each city and see if you like it.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing I've talked about before, on this channel, and those of you who watch other videos, if not, go back and watch them, is we do what's called a discovery trip. I mean, that's what we did when we first made the trip out here.
Yeah, I remember
is that. We just, we went across, we did it crazily. It was like, they just happened so quick. We just made that decision. It was all building up over time. But when we came out here, we rented an Airbnb for about a month, 2 months. About 2 months. And we just did a massive, luckily we had, I had the ability to do that much time because I was able to obviously work remote, but just take a trip out here. You have to see, especially if you've never visited Florida before, you got to find out if it's for you, because it is not for everyone, but yeah, making that discovery trip out here. And even those who, they reach out to us, like I always have a sheet built out. So if they're, depending on where they're trying to look, like I'll just give them some key areas and be like, hey, go look at these landmarks and then just travel the area. And that's something that we always do for people that are like unsure. It's just, hey, here you go. Here's a hot sheet. Go just travel around, call me if you have any questions, but you have to discover, you get a lot of stuff.
That's so important. I mean, I have like a dozen friends that have made this move. And the first thing I said to them was, and a lot of them want to go to Southwest Florida. And I've said, you need to go check areas out. Like, for example, Naples, everybody loves Naples. And then I love Naples. But I think when you get there, if you need to work, you might take a look at it and go, like it's a little bit more sleepy than say Orlando, which is a bustling, growing city. And and so, so many times people need to do that discovery trip, because I spoke with a lady yesterday. She said, we can't decide between Clearwater and Sarasota. And I'm like, wow, like that, those are two different markets.
Yep.
And they're moving and they have kids. And a big hot button for her was she wants to be able to be 15 minutes from the beach because she's got younger children.
Right.
And she was talking about an area in the Sarasota area that was, on paper, it was 22 minutes from the beach. But I know in reality, the traffic down there makes it more like 45. So I said, go rent a place there for 2 weeks or a month if you can do that, and live the life and see if that makes sense for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's a huge part, it's making sure that what area you want to go to start with, because it always get reach outs and people just, they don't know. Like you said, it always starts with a big area, but that's why it's so important to reach out to someone like us, like we've been through it. We've gone through the process, and it's like, look, like if we can at least give you some insight to narrow down, because we don't want people moving here that they're going to move here and like 2 months later, they're gonna be like, wow, this is the worst decision I ever made in my life. Because that just does no good for anyone.
Here's an interesting, I want to bring this up. I belong to this Facebook group called, I think it's actually called Moving from California to Florida. And there's another one just called Moving to Florida. But the I'm finding is I say this to people all the time. There's a lot of good advice on there from a lot of people. And there's a lot of really bad advice from people on there.
Right.
So, people who've gone through the move, we can tell you real things. People who are in the business can actually give you better information about local real estate. Betty over on the Facebook group. What Betty can tell you on the Facebook group is what she did or didn't like about certain areas. And I think that's useful. But I strongly encourage people, don't take your real estate advice from the Facebook group. Go meet someone who understands real estate or who maybe has made that move, and they're going to give you some better information. So that's why, reach out and talk to either one of us or both of us.
Yeah.
And that's easy enough to do.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I said, it's always just, call, text, email, like doesn't matter how you get a hold of us. Like we're obviously everywhere, search our names. there's always a way to get a hold of us, when it comes to doing that. Because really what happens is your first meeting with us is probably going to be something like this, where we sit down and we just talk about your life, because in really times, we help people do real estate decisions and, buy and sell, invest, do all those things. That's great, but relocation is definitely a special place for us because we've been there. We've done that. And a lot of times it's just working through everything for you. I mean, we've had, conversations before where it comes down to it and they're like, you know what? I don't think this is right route for me. That's fine.
That happens.
We all do weekly emails and, keep people in touch with the market and what's going on. And, hey, if you make the move out here and you're like, look, I need some time, then yeah, so be it. Reach out when you're ready. But, it's just always being there for people when they go to make
I have something fun for you. I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to be the host for a little bit. So
go for it.
I want to ask you, and then I'll give you my answer. Let me get your top 5 reasons for why you like Florida better than California to grow and raise your family.
Yeah. So the first thing is there's just so much to do. I mean, so nothing, man, it's a little bit of everything against it. So obviously, for those who don't know, I grew up in the country of New York, small town. And so moving to Southern California, it's just one big city to me. It doesn't matter where you live. It's one big city. So I was already it's
kind of small town, but it's for you. Yeah, that's right. You're a small town boy. That's true.
I am. So a lot of people, they don't understand because they think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they're like, oh, I love this area. It's great. To be honest with you, once my wife, once we made the decision that, hey, it's just, we weren't happy with how things were, the cost, how things were being decided on in the area. Mm-hmm. We're like, no. Yeah. I'm like, we really enjoy our freedoms. We enjoy, there's something better. So when we took that initial road trip, we knew Florida was our destination because that's where the Airbnb was, but we really just took a whole trip across the southern United States with our 2 boys and just traveled everywhere, all the way through, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Mississippi, small portion, Alabama, and all those places. And, but Florida to us, everyone always attacks the weather. That's irrelevant to us. It's fine to me. I've been through it, and also for those who maybe are on the fence, my wife, she hates bugs and she will destroy anyone in her way when there's bugs, and she, maybe not a huge fan of that humidity. But she, not even an issue. Once you go into the area, we realize that we feel like we have more freedom. There's a lot of things I love to do. I love to hunt, fish, it's a huge part of what my life used to be. And I want that to be for my boys. But at the same time, my wife's really big into theme parks but being close to hospitals and all that stuff. And really the first thing we noticed when we got here was that you can do that here. I mean, you can live in downtown Orlando in a high rise and get full city experience.
Yes.
Or you can drive about 38 minutes from that, maybe not even that far. And, you're pretty much in small town feeling. Yeah. Or if you want to go as much as 45 minutes, you could be living in the country.
Yes.
Doing your own
Florida.
thing.
And the cool thing is you're near all those resources too, right? I mean, you're still going to have some of the best hospitals around. You're still going to be near theme parks. You could live not off the grid, but in an experience that's almost like off the grid. And boom, 45 minutes, you're going to be in some of the top hospitals if you need them, and you're going to still have the amenities and the fun that you get in Orlando. So freedom's number 1. Let's take that. That's a kind of esoteric, generic thing.
It's generic, but it's a huge reason why I love it.
Yeah, but I'm going to get you more specific. So let's talk about the freedoms that we like, right? So the freedom I liked, the first thing I liked when I got to Florida, the first thing I did was I went to a paddleboard race in Pensacola, and I looked around and nobody was wearing masks, and I was like, okay, people aren't running scared and hiding here. This is but let's talk about some of the freedoms. What are some of the freedoms? Well, give me one freedom that you have in Florida that you didn't have in California.
Well, a big thing for me, just because being in the military and stuff like that, but that's firearms.
Sure.
It's just a huge part of my life. I love hunting. I love, target shooting. It's just, I really enjoy it. And, living in California, unfortunately, it's just super hard just to even do it as a hobby. And out here in Florida, it's way more open. I mean, sure, there's rules and safeties and all that stuff. So don't everyone watching this, don't freak out about it. But that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
something that
and
was
there
huge for
should
me.
be, right?
Yeah, for sure. But that was something that was huge for me because I had limited options in what I can get in California. But here in Florida, it's pretty much all within reach. So, some people like cars. I like doing that. It's a huge part of what I enjoy. And like you said before, with the masks and all that stuff, like I just, I was really tired of it.
Yeah.
I really just want to. One thing I noticed when I came to Central Florida is everyone always talks about the South and like how everyone's all backwoods, and I don't know, everyone from like California, New York, because those are the places I'm from. That's just how they view it. But once you come here, like everyone's from everywhere. I met people from the UK, Canada, and no one cares. Everyone's just like, hey, you do what you want to do, I'll do what I want to do, and we'll just have a good time. And that's the culture.
And they're nice people too. Florida.
Yeah,
nice
and they're
people.
Super friendly.
And like you, being from the Northeast, I noticed that everybody's less uptight.
Yep.
So the ability to own and carry a firearm, and I think that's an important thing too. I grew up just outside of Philadelphia, New Jersey, and New Jersey had the most restrictive gun laws in the world. And when I was young, I moved to Arizona for this. This is a funny story I'll share with you. I was in the Safeway grocery store, and I'm walking down the aisle, and there's a guy with a holstered weapon.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you're shrugging. You're from a small town in New York, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I was freaked out. I went over to the manager. I said, "My God, there's a guy carrying a weapon." And the manager looked at me and said, "Okay, yeah, fine." And it was a big culture shock for me. 30 years ago, I had to go, "Wow!" And since then, I've learned one of the greatest things to do is to learn how to protect yourself. And is to get the nice thing about Florida is if you want to, you have the right to not only own but to carry a firearm. Right. And my wife went through a CCL course and got a lot of great education. And we are both big proponents of training and education in it. But I think that's a great advantage. Used to be an open carry state, but some 12 years ago turned into this oppressive. And really going after people's Second Amendment rights. That's no good. So that's one. Okay, the ability to own a firearm. That's the freedom to own a firearm. That's a good one. What else?
So much more opportunity for my kids. Because in reality, there's so much to do. Like, there's every theme park I imagine. Like even like Southern California, people are like, oh, there's so much outdoor stuff to do, and there is. But it's all within like driving or doing all this crazy stuff. But in Florida, it's way more there. I can go to the beach, or I can just disappear into the woods and do other stuff like that pretty easily. And also it's a lot like just cheaper options. Like I'm not looking at spending like $1,000 to go do an event for my kids. Like they got they got animal reserves. Spent like $20. We all go in watching them feed alligators. You go during the summer when the tourists aren't so much there and it's dead. We pretty much had a private tour and teaching about local history. But even Orlando has some weird places, as you know. So you got Wonderworks, which is just like a fun little museum for kids. They haven't been here yet, but they have like the replica of the Holy Land you can go visit.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's a list. There's so much to do. There's even like if you're heading towards Lakeland, they have a dinosaur. I forgot the exact name of it. My wife would be upset with me, but it's like Dinosaur Land, which my son's obsessed with. So, we can get a cheap year pass there. And like people always think that they think of theme parks, but like there's so much to do here. And also like I can go to sports venues, like, in San Diego, like I have to go all the way to LA and I don't want to go to LA. No one wants to go to LA. But here I can go to like Tampa's amazing, but you can drive there either for the beach because we're not huge beach people. So Orlando's a good distance for us. We can go to the beach and Clearwater and stuff like that. Yeah. Or we can go to like a Bucks game, get the Lightning, or you can
Magic right there.
Yeah, you do have the Orlando Magic. Yeah, you get the Orlando Magic. I'm just not huge into basketball, but so you have the Orlando Magic. But so there's everything. Like I don't care what you enjoy. Like literally, I think the only thing people get hung up with is hurricanes and like the weather. But that was a big thing for me was having all that stuff.
There's a lot of cool things to do, and I'll agree with you. I remember in California when I first moved to San Diego. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
it was kind of cool. I mean, because San Diego still had all the really cool outdoor stuff, which you can do in Central Florida, but it was a production, right? I felt like you had to pack the car up and drive 45 minutes to go hiking, whereas or if I wanted to go surfing or paddleboarding, it was a production, like, because it's really rare that you can live right on the beach. It's really rare that you can live on the water. It's rare that you can live close to a lot of these places. So, whereas in Florida, the one thing I noticed is, like, if I want to go paddleboarding, I just, go off the dock in the backyard. And if I want to go out hiking in the wilderness, it's not real far. It's about 15 minutes away. I can go down to Fort DeSoto, and boom, that's 15 minutes away. It's this great park that they have there, you don't get hit with $20 parking and all the kind of garbage that used to get.
Right. I mean, well, I'll never forget my first beach experience in San Diego. I drove all my buddies to the beach. They all got out and just left me trying to find a parking spot. And as you know, like, good luck finding parking at noon in the beaches in San Diego. And my first, like, within 5 minutes, I had someone flip me off. Like, that was my experience. I was like, welcome to San Diego. I'm like,
have a nice day, right?
Yeah, have a nice day. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, this is insane. I'm like, and I hated the beach. But you're right. Like, when we went out there, like we went during a pretty crowded day on the beach in Clearwater, and we found parking. We parked immediately, and it started to rain and thunderstorm. We're like, well, we don't want to go back to the rental and all the way in Orlando. And we ended up getting a full condo suite overlooking the bay for $150 a night. Like,
nice.
Like, in San Diego, that same thing would have cost you about like $400 a night. And I think that's the big things to do. But also, number 3 is like the cost. It's the ability to get more of my budget. Like, I tell people, you're not really going to save money overall, because people are, as Americans, we're very good at doing our budget. But it's, what are you getting at? Like, I get a condo in San Diego. Now I get a 5-bed, 3-bath house here. For, all that money, like, not only like the money of one stay in a hotel in San Diego, I got a room, parking, and a full dinner for my family. Actually, more, I get more than that, but like, in free rides around Clearwater. Cause if you get any of the hotels there, you get a trolley that goes around for free. It's things like that I think it's amazing.
So the cost is a really good thing. And I want to touch on 2 things about costs. Yeah. If you're younger and starting out with a family, you're probably going to need a mortgage. Not a whole lot of people under 30 have 300 or 400,000 to put down.
Right.
So, comparing what you would get, say, for 400,000 in San Diego County, which is going to be an old, maybe only 1-bedroom condo or 2-bedroom condo, versus 400,000 in Orlando.
Yep.
You're for the same mortgage payment, you're going to get a lot more house. So that's one thing right there. But if you have gone through raising a family and have owned property, and you've owned property in California, and you're my age, here's the best thing. And I saw this as an incredible thing, was you're now setting yourself up for no costs, right? Because the San Diego real estate market went bonkers over the past 20 years, and houses literally that were 300 and new houses built in 99 that were 320,000 are selling for $1.6 million today.
Yep.
So there are a lot of people who are walking out of California who are my age, that are walking out with $500,000 or $1 million in equity in their homes. Yeah. And that's a cool thing, because the first $500,000 of that, if you're married, is tax-free, and you roll that right in. And if you got someone rolling into Orlando with $500,000, or they're going to go up to the northwestern suburbs of Orlando, they're going to get an amazing house for $500,000, and then still put 200 or 300 in the bank. Yep. So I think that's an important part of the cost too. So number 3 is costs. That's a good one.
And also, a quick note on that, like, that's why I tell everyone, like, there's opportunity for everyone here, because I've obviously I still hold my license in California and have clients that refer out there. I do too. And then, and being active here in Orlando, it's like, what I tell people is like, what's the market like in Orlando? I'm like, the biggest thing to sum it up for people that aren't living here and they're coming from expensive metros is, you can have money and get a lifetime experience, or you could be a starting family and we can find you something.
Yes.
Like, but it's not going to be out of the way. It's not going to be like you're traveling 3 hours, or some of the crazy stuff I've heard in San Diego for work. Like, you can be really close and relative. Like, Shortly, you know, after this, I'll have videos coming out of like, you know, cheaper places and stuff like that, but still safe. You know, it's like there's so much opportunity, and they're only like an hour from the airport. And not even, actually, it's like 50 minutes, you know, 45. Like that's nothing, you know. Like
and you know, this is a really good point because and I'm going to bring this part up to people who are around my age because it's useful. I'm watching a whole lot of people walking out, leaving Southern California, and they're 50, Florida, and they're reinventing their life because they actually have the money to do it. Like they're buying a house for cash and going, you know, I spent 20 years doing whatever, and I don't want to do that. Now I want to be a personal trainer. By the way, I'm not a personal trainer, just that you all know. But I'm watching people, they're going, you know what, I want to be a personal trainer because fitness has been a passion of mine, and they're doing it and succeeding. And this is because they're walking away with that chunk of money, and they're finding that they're getting into a market where there's a lot of people where their services are needed. So I think that's an extraordinary thing, is that people can sort of reinvent themselves for the last 15 years or 20 years of their working career. So cost, we've got freedom, we've got opportunity and cost. By the way, this sounds good. Freedom, opportunity, and cost. What's another one?
Oh, man.
If you don't know, I'll give you number 4. I'm going to give you number 4, okay?
Give me number 4.
Everybody in April is a thing called taxes. Now, we can't get away from the federal income tax, but I'll tell you the best thing. This is the first year I am not filing that California income tax return. And I was paying close to my effective rate. My marginal rate was up over 10%. My effective rate, what's that mean? That means if you make $100,000, $9,000 is going to the state of California. And Florida has no state income tax.
Yep.
And that's amazing. And if you're making $200,000, there's $18,000 that you're paying to the state of California every year.
Yeah.
And I bring this up because there's a lot of people where we run the numbers and go, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what I paid to California could be a mortgage payment for me in Florida.
It's true. You know, and like I've done a little bit on that, and I think it was Market Watch that I got this information on. Don't quote me on this. So verify this information, everyone who's watching. But it's like, you know, the overall, so they have like an overall like percentage of income like hit from taxes, you know, and they include it like, you know, sales tax, you know, everything, property tax, like everything gets lumped in a number. And it's like in California, like you're like 17%, you know, is like getting taken away from you just for living there between everything. In Florida, like it's, you know, it's about 9.4. And obviously that's a whole average. So if you're living in a smaller, cheaper county, like it could be cheaper.
Right.
But
that's a really good point, you know, because it lumps in property taxes and sales taxes. I just looked into this yesterday in preparation for our talk today. Florida is one of the, it depends on which list you look at, but it's either the lowest, it's always in the lowest 10 of the 50 states in overall tax burden. Anywhere, some have it as low as 5, some have it as low as 7, or as high as 7. But that's a really big deal. I mean, especially if you're trying to raise a family in the beginning part of your adult life. I mean, if I could go back over the last 30 years and track all the money I spent, not limited to, but including Social Security, all the money I've spent on forced taxation, right? Money that was taken from me, that I had no say in. And by the way, I couldn't invest my Social Security money. I couldn't, you know, those sales taxes, it turns out they, you know, in California, my sales taxes and gas taxes and all those things, they just stole anyway and didn't do the things they said they were going to do. If I could actually take a look at that, which in California is, say, is 17%, you're saying it's at 9%, just that 6% of my income, if I could invest that somewhere over a 30-year period, that would be a lot of money. So I think no state income tax and low overall tax burden is an important consideration. And I don't see it going the wrong way. I mean, I see it in California. I already know that was my one primary reason was I already know they're going to double the income tax down the road because of the COVID mess. And they're already talking about universal health care in California. They're talking about giving out gas rebates. And I already know they're going to take the personal income taxes up. The good thing is in Florida, I know that's like not going to happen.
Right. You know, Yeah, I agree. Not to mention, obviously, there's always good and bad of everywhere, but it's just the opportunity when you move here. And also, I think one thing that surprised us is the ability, like, relatively cheap to travel from Florida,
Mhm.
right? Like, unfortunately, like being in San Diego is one of those places where, like, let's look at like two of the major areas you'd fly into in California, in Southern California: LA,
Mhm.
LAX, and then San Diego.
Mhm.
We're flying into San Diego or from San Diego, you got to add in an extra couple $100 a ticket.
Yep. Because
Um,
it's not a direct hub. I mean, or you'd
right.
have to, if you want to get a break, you have to drive, I'd say 2, but sometimes it's as much as 4 hours,
Yep.
depending upon the traffic.
Yeah, and that's one thing people really need to realize about Orlando is it is a central hub, because
Mhm.
thankfully, like, it is a tourist location. People want to view it as a negative. Well, it also helps when it comes when you want to fly places. Here's a good example. Like, my wife's family's from Bolivia,
Mhm.
and they travel back pretty consistently. So from like, it'll cost you, like, almost $2,000 a ticket flying from San Diego, because you have to go from San Diego to Florida and then to Bolivia. Well, now
Oh,
they're
really?
cutting up. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Now they're. I mean, I'm sure there's other flight routes, but that's what they usually take. So now you cut off San Diego, living in Florida. I got another family member that's fine decided to move out here as well, to like Winter Gardens, where they're looking.
Mhm.
Um, Now they're able to, like, cut that cost in half per ticket, because it's insanely cheaper to fly from Orlando, either nationally or domestically. I mean, a round trip to LAX, let's say from someone moving from California, like those clients, like, we found those, it's a little bit more now with, obviously, inflation and all that stuff, but it's only about, probably $300 round trip, a little bit less. Like, that's insane. San Diego will be a little bit higher, closer to 400, but if you're flying back to a major metro area, like, you do your research, you'd probably be surprised by how much cheaper it is booking that round trip ticket from Orlando. And
So that's a good point. I mean,
yep,
Orlando's got a great airport. I forgot
yep.
about
A lot of
that.
people don't
Airport's
realize it.
amazing, but
Yep.
but it's not as good as Orlando because Orlando has that big playground called Disney, and so they
Yeah.
built all the
Yeah.
airlines want to fly through Orlando, and they
Yes.
want to make that a major hub.
Yep.
Whereas Tampa, it's a big and certainly bustling airport. But I just thought about that. Orlando's actually got Orlando airfares are cheaper because it's a more desirable hub than Tampa for so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so if you're from the Northeast, I mean, that's a great thing is
Oh,
you
it's
can fly into
awesome.
Orlando for cheap.
Yep.
And I had a buddy from Philadelphia come down to visit me, and he drove to Trenton. He was trying to save some money and wanted to deal with Philly Airport. And but going to Orlando, I remember he went a few months earlier to Orlando. He said it was the easiest thing, and it
Yep.
wasn't a lot of money. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
good point.
It is a good point. Actually, I think that ends up being my number 5. To be honest with you, it's just being in a place people vacation to, like Orlando. It was amazing, right? Like, so we lived in North County, San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, people from across the county or whatever. And when we lived in, so at the time we lived in Bonsall, right? Which, so those who don't know, it's in North County, San Diego, and anyone who's in San Diego considers that the country and way out of the
Yes,
way.
we did.
Um, no one would want to visit us ever. But all of a sudden,
Right, I wouldn't.
you make the move to Orlando, and no kidding, like, everyone's like, oh man, we'll fly out twice a year. Why? Because of Disney. Because it's people want to come here, and so a lot of people, like my wife's biggest concern is, like, oh, like, no one's not being away from family, making that separation. I know I've talked to other people and clients that have reached out, and they feel the same way. But you'd be surprised when you make that move out here. Not only is it usually cheaper to fly back to where you're from, people are going to want to visit you, especially if you can get a bigger home out here where you have that extra guest room. If you're able to set something up to where you can help people like that, you'd be surprised. Everyone's already, like, they make plans all the time. Like, hey, can I come out, like, in September? Can I come out in December? I'm like, yeah, of course. Because so then it's people, I think, visit us more here than they did when we lived in the same state. And it's because you live in a place that people want to vacation to.
So I'm going to have some fun with you. Another one here too, because I
Yeah.
live down in the Tampa Bay area, right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you. How about if I give you? I will come up with things I think about Orlando, and you tell me if they're right or wrong, or reasons I wouldn't like it. So there's really, I mean, one of the things I like in the St. Petersburg area is I can go boating,
Right.
and I belong to the Freedom Boat Club. I can go out anywhere. There's really no, there's not boating like down here out in Orlando like there is in Tampa.
No, you can definitely get a home on. There's so many lakes. So you can easily.
Well, yeah, that's the answer. There's a lot of great boating in Orlando.
Yeah.
It's
also,
on lakes. It's on lakes.
Yeah. Well, I did a video that just came out recently that I'll link as well right now. But that is, I did Orlando versus Tampa. Tampa tends to be a little more expensive at times.
Yeah. At times.
But if you're like me and like the beach is like, the beach, it's great. I don't want to live next to it. But so if you're like me, Orlando's amazing because you get to be in between Daytona and Tampa. And if it is within your budget, like Tampa's only like, so let's say you're center of Orlando, let's say an hour and a half to get all the way to the harbor, but you can still keep a boat there. Like an hour and a half isn't that bad because like people don't realize like right now, like most of the time, depending when you're leaving, like that hour and a half is because of distance, not because you're stuck in traffic. Like, in some of these crazy metros people are coming from. And I'm sure it'll get bad over time, but they are, trying to expand the 4 and stuff like that to make it easier to travel back and forth as, population increases.
But go the other way too. Like you can go over to the Atlantic coast.
You can
relatively easily, right?
Yep. I love, like my dad's super into fishing as well. Like we've taken Atlantic fishing charters.
Okay.
And that's also an option for people who are really, it's super fun. So if you haven't done it and you're looking to make the move out here, like you should definitely look into it because that is a blast. It's nothing like getting strapped to a chair to go fishing. But yeah, that's what Orlando is to me. So people that are like, because people are like focused on Orlando and they're like, oh, it's really touristy, it's why I don't want to live there. That's if you're living around Disney World. Like people don't realize, like if you go to like North Orlando, right? Like it's still like there's a lot of new construction, but that's where your like permanent Orlando residents, a lot of the construction is heading that direction, and you get really tucked away from tourism. Like it's just one of those areas where like you see tourism if you look for it. But if you're staying away from those areas, like you're good. But you look during the winter, like a lot of people are going to go to those beach areas and stuff like that. That's why I love Orlando. Because if you're like me and like you kind of want to be tucked away, like you can be tucked away in Orlando for a good price and kind of do your own thing. But you're close to those things if you really want to go into the fire of all the craziness and stuff like that. It's a good mix. That's what the biggest difference between Tampa and Orlando to me. Tampa is, because it has the sports teams and it has the beach and stuff like that. At times, like there's things where it can definitely get more crowded or, a lot more going on. So it's,
it is more crowded. The traffic is worse.
That's what I always tell people. Sure. Orlando's like, people like me who are like, I can't be around too many people. So that's the trade-off Orlando gives, to where you're close enough to deal with it, but you're close enough to be tucked away. And that's usually what I tell people to start with is like, you got to figure out what kind of person you are. Because all of Central Florida is awesome. That's why we chose to move here. But it's you really have to decide between those two places is what kind of person are you. All right. Well, Brian, it was awesome as well. This is the first video of many where people really got to see the face, the name. So those of you who obviously are looking to make the move, like we absolutely love helping you. As you see before, as I mentioned before, like we are a team who we're not from here, but we've made that move. We know the pain points. We've searched the areas and we help clients every day make the move to Orlando or, even Central Florida in general. Like we're here to help you, but Orlando especially. That's why I love it. That's why I do every day. And if that's you, give us a call, shoot us a text, an email, whatever you have to do. We have your back when making the move to Orlando. Brian, thank you so much.
A lot of fun. It was a lot of fun just kind of rambling about the move. And I think that's it. I think it's useful. I think it's helpful if you're watching, if you've made it this far. The two of us rambling, there's a lot of gems in here. And I think that's, especially if you're thinking of coming from a different state.
For sure. So, thank you so much for watching, especially if you watch this far. We appreciate you and we do everything we can to, provide value. If there's any other questions that you had from watching this video, let us know in the comments below and I will, be sure to jump on that, answer it, and happy to start the conversation there. So without that, I will see you in the next video.